All right, let's begin our fourth Climate Careers Chat, everyone. I am very excited to be here, and I hope our audience is as well. I am Rachel Kimball, and I will be one of your co-moderators tonight. I am currently a sophomore at Carondelet High School and a proud volunteer at Sustainable Leaders in Action. You will hear a ton about that later. Right now, I'm going to hand it off to Mia so she can introduce her lovely self, and we can get going.
Hi everyone, so good to see you all here tonight. My name is Mia and I'm going to be the second moderator for this event tonight. I will be a junior at Camp Lindo High School, Moraga. And yeah, let's get started. So before we get into detail with the presentations, just want to say that these Climate Careers Chats are produced in partnership with the Contra Costa County Library. So a big thank you to the library for this partnership. It's always amazing to work with you guys. And yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Jackie to talk a little bit more about this.
Jackie, did you want to say a little bit about the partnership?
Oh, Jackie, me?
Yeah.
There's two Jackies tonight, so it's a little confusing. I'm sorry. My name is Jacqueline. I'm a librarian in Antioch, and we're so thrilled to partner with Sustainable Contra Costa and SLIA for Sustainable Leaders in Action. We are so thrilled to be part of this. We've always supported sustainability as a library. This is just one more way that we can bring wonderful information to you. So thank you so much to all the moderators tonight, to the SLIA crew, to Jackie and Ralph, our presenters, and to all of you in attendance. Thanks so much.
And I just want to introduce myself and welcome all of you guys. I'm Max. I'm the current Climate Careers Chat intern for SLIA. And this will be my last Climate Careers Chat as the intern, as I'm moving away to college next year. But I'm glad to see all of you here. Excited for this event, and hope we have a fantastic time tonight.
And we're going to miss you, Max. There's one more person that we need to introduce before we can head to the agenda. Alexi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Alexi Lindeman. I'm the current chair of SLIA. And I'm just so proud of the whole entire team for putting these 4 climate careers that will continue to make improvements, and along with our other projects, which I'll be talking about later, introduce the panelists and continue with tonight's.
Can I pop on really fast? My name's Eliana Betrez. I work with Sustainable Contra Costa as the virtual event facilitator, and I help manage the partnership between SLIA and the library, and we're so excited.
Yes, we really are so excited. So let's get to the agenda so we can tell you all about what's going to happen tonight. So first, we're going to have our panelist introductions. You're going to get to know a little bit about our panelists before getting to know a lot about our panelists. Our first presentation, we have Jacqueline Drumheller, followed by a quick break where you'll get to learn all about SLIA. It's going to be great. And then a presentation by the one, the only Ralph Jessee. After that, a quick Q&A. You can ask any questions you want to both of the panelists and also about SLIA, in case you're wondering. And finally, some closing comments. So that's it. Mia, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Rachel. So again, this will be the 4th Climate Careers Chat produced by SLIA, also known as Sustainable Leaders in Action. SLIA is SCOCO's youth-led team composed of high school and college students, and our goal is to promote sustainable practices within our county and also empower the next generation of climate activists. So with this panel, we hope that you guys can not only learn a little bit more about green careers in general, but also learn about professionals in this area and their different journeys and how they got to where they are now. So I'm going to let Rachel take over again.
All right, just a quick reminder to everyone that these are made in partnership with Sustainable Leaders in Action and the Contra Costa County Libraries. And we cannot have done this without the libraries. We're going to talk a lot about the libraries because they are amazing. I just got a couple books from there. Cannot wait to read them. So excited. So now we're going to transition into introducing our panelists. And today we are joined by 2 professionals in the environmental industry, Jacqueline Drumheller, and Ralph Jessee. Jacqueline works at Bio-Rad and Ralph Jessee works at the USDA. So Mia, I'll let you take it away. We're going to play a quick 2 truths and a lie.
Yes, so to get to know these two panelists before the presentation, we're going to play 2 truths and a lie. So I'm going to let Jacqueline take it away with her questions.
Jacqueline Drumheller. Oh, yes. So 2 truths and a lie. Which one is the lie? Did I meet my husband at a hazardous waste disposal facility? Did I play the accordion when I was younger? Or did I teach ballroom dancing to pay my way through college? Which one is the truth? Which 2 are the truth and which one's the lie? I see a lot of did not play the accordion, the first one. You know, I was born in Germany and my mother was German. And for some reason, she thought it was appropriate when I was 7 years old to get me started on the accordion, which was an instrument that weighed just as much as I did. Needless to say, it didn't last very long. And then secondly, actually, I worked in the hazardous waste disposal industry for a while where I actually met my husband at a hazardous waste site. So the false answer is I did not teach ballroom dancing at all. I can't dance to save my life.
Thank you, Jacqueline. That was amazing. And I definitely did not expect those questions. I'm going to let Ralph take over with his questions now.
All right, question 1. I was on the Pyramid television game show in the late 1990s. 2, I was in the Marine Corps and in the Navy. 3, I was in the Gamma Phi Circus. Doesn't look like very many guesses on number 1. You guys. Okay, so back in 1976, I rode a unicycle and was a juggler in the Gamma Phi Circus at the Illinois State University. I was only 12 years old at the time, but there were a bunch of kids that were celebrating the U.S. bicentennial for the a parade. And so, yeah, I was in a circus. I'll also show you in my slideshow that I was in the Marine Corps and the Navy. So, yeah, never on a television game show, folks.
Thank you, Ralph. That was also amazing to learn a little bit more about you, and I definitely did not expect the circus one. So now that we know you guys a little bit better, we're going to start with the presentations. So let's begin with Jacqueline's presentation. Jacqueline is a Global Sustainability Program Manager at Bio-Rad Laboratories. If you guys have any questions during her presentation, please put them in the Q&A box and do not privately chat the moderators or the panelists, and please indicate whom your question is for.
Hold on. There we go. Everybody see my screen okay?
Yes,
Yep, we can see your screen.
Is that a yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Well, thank you for having me this evening. This is super fun. I'm glad to be here. So I just heard I have 15 minutes to compress an entire year in the life of a corporate sustainability professional. So I'm going to do my best. I started my timer and away we go. Well, if I can get this. Oh, there there we go. All right. So where do I work? So actually, you know, I onboarded during the pandemic. So I'm working from home in Seattle, Washington, but my actual workplace is our global headquarters in Hercules, California. It's right there on the water, gorgeous campus. We just completed a 4-megawatt solar farm right out there on campus. It's not in this picture, but if you visit there, you'll be amazed by all the solar panels nowadays. But we are a global company. We're all over the world. We're in 40 different countries. So this makes it a really interesting and complicated job dealing with all the different people and all the different time zones all over the world. You know, and I've been there since January, and I'm still trying to figure out what it is that Bio-Rad does. But we make all kinds of instrumentation and consumables. And to think about it, our customers are hospitals, testing laboratories, and universities. So if you go to a university, you might see our logo on some of the instruments there. We test for blood types and antibodies. We have one of the most successful COVID tests right now. In my office in Redmond, California, it's amazing. We have laboratories there, and they're like biohazard level 3 containment laboratories. We're growing SARS and AIDS and COVID. In the offices beneath my feet, there's laboratories where they're growing all kinds of weird diseases. So it's pretty amazing work. So advancing science and improving healthcare, that's our purpose. So, you know, I started this career really a long time ago, really not knowing what I wanted to do. You know, I graduated high school and I went off to community college, and I kept changing my major because I wasn't entirely happy with anything that I was trying. I majored in art for 2 years. And after 2 years, I decided it really wasn't for me. And I changed my major to business, and I thought that was painfully boring and I didn't like that. And then I changed my major to biology. And turns out it took me 7.5 years to get a bachelor's degree, but I graduated with like 350 semester credits in 3 different things, and none of the units were transferable. And I find that I use kind of all the skills that I learned in college. Before I was at Bio-Rad, I worked for 25 years almost at Alaska Airlines, and I launched their sustainability program there. And I retired a couple of years ago, and I decided to come back to work by helping Bio-Rad Laboratories launch their sustainability program. And so you're thinking, what the heck is a sustainability program? Well, you know, I didn't always start in sustainability. I started, you know, when I got out of college, I started by getting my first real job at a hazardous waste disposal facility where we're handling military waste. We were a contractor removing all kinds of hazardous waste for the military. We all had like paperweights made out of dried up napalm sitting on our desks in the office and things like that. And then eventually I got a job in environmental regulatory compliance at Alaska Airlines. It was great because I got to fly for free, you know, but I wasn't entirely happy with the environmental compliance job after a while. And, you know, I started my career by actually stopping the CEO in the hallway. I was sitting there at my job one day thinking, I'm getting kind of bored with my work. And the CEO just happened to walk by and he asked me what I was doing. And I didn't exactly put my foot on his chest, but I did start telling him what I thought about we weren't doing enough to protect the environment. This compliance was not enough. We need to do more. We need to recycle on our planes. We need to cut our emissions. You know, we needed to minimize our waste. We needed to buy more sustainable materials. And so he was pretty scared at first because I was pretty aggressive in my approach to him. But then after a few minutes, his eyes started to twinkle. And later on, I got an email saying, Bill Ayer is interested in what you had to say. What's your proposal? And I went, oh no, I'm really on the hook now. What do I do? And one of the first things we did is I organized a green team at work. And this is 1 million disposable cups, the number used on US airline flights every 6 hours. This is heartbreaking to see this type of waste every single day. And one of the first things we do is we started the first airline in-flight recycling program at Alaska Airlines. So this young lady right here, she's taking all the wine bottles and beer bottles, putting them in the recycle bin. And then we go through a lot of wine, beer bottles, and cups at the airline. And so it was the most successful in-flight recycling program probably in the country. I'm very proud of that. So, you know, this year I'm building a new sustainability program at Bio-Rad Laboratories. And there's a lot of stuff to do to launch something like this. So I'm just going to briefly talk about sort of the steps, the things I do, what my job consists of, and that should take the next 10 minutes. So what do I do? Well, first of all, sustainability in a corporate context, if you think about it, it's really about the company's ability to prosper in a changing global business environment by anticipating and managing these kind of environmental and social risks. You know, you have to engage with your stakeholders and see what they want. Like our customers are asking us about packaging, our investors are asking us about cutting our emissions. You know, our employees want certain things. So it's really about prioritizing and working on the right things. And just the words on the screen, you know, you hear CSR, you hear ESG, you hear sustainability, you hear corporate responsibility. There's a lot of words that almost essentially all mean the same thing. We're not really a great lexicon that defines them all really well, and people kind of use them interchangeably. So if you think about, if you want to be a sustainable company, well, what does that mean? Well, you know, if you look at a business like Bio-Rad, you know, inside the company, you have facilities like buildings, you have processes that you're doing, you have employees, and then upline, there's inputs, right? You got to have some energy, you got to have some materials. And on the other end, you have outputs. What are you outputting? Well, you're outputting your products, right? Or your services. And then you're also outputting waste. And then less direct, you're also influencing some things. You're influencing the rest of the industry and you're influencing the community. And so what's a sustainable version of these 6 things? Well, for energy, you would be using 100% renewable energy. For materials, you'd use stuff that was sustainably harvested and is completely ethically sourced or recyclable. You know, for your products, you would be making products that are long-lived, that meet a real need, that are reusable and good for people. For waste, well, you wouldn't be making anything. You would be having zero waste. You'd be having closed loop systems. This is an idealized state. In the industry, you'd be transforming the industry. And in the community, you'd be providing employment, being a good neighbor, supporting charities, things like that. So this is what we all aspire to, right? And my job is to get Bio-Rad from this sort of, we're just starting on this path, this, you know, random sustainability programs up here, from being a defensive and reactive to a proactive, principled, integrated sustainability program. So it's a lot of work to do to get from one point to the other, a lot of change to happen. And first, you got to start with some sort of governance. You got to get the executives together and you got to get them to be on board, and you got to get them to identify what the priorities are. So you have steering committee meetings and things like that. And there's a lot of convincing that you have to do. And then you have to identify all your risks and opportunities. And when I say risks and opportunities, you know, what are our customers asking for? You know, they're asking us about our packaging and our emissions and asking us whether we're certified and things like that. And then, you know, you have your other stakeholders and they care about these things all throughout history. They care about the safety of your employees. They care about the waste. They care about what your products are made of. They care about over packaging. So you want to make sure you're listening to them as well. And then your investors actually want you to do something about the environment these days too, because there's so much focus on this. The companies that do this well actually make more money too. So you got to please a lot of stakeholders. And first, you got to identify, you know, what's really material to the organization. What are our priorities? What should we focus on first? That's the hard part. You want to focus on things that are in significant environmental, social, economic impact. You know, what are your peers doing? What do your stakeholders care about? Where do you have opportunity for innovation? So for example, at an airline, you know, sometimes you see like these PR efforts with the soccer balls. That's not really material, you know, that's not something the investors and the other stakeholders care about. What they care about is that people, for an airline at least, the material issues, that they're reducing emissions and using sustainable fuel. So these are things that are more impactful and more meaningful for the industry. For us in making healthcare supplies and scientific supplies, what's more meaningful for us, it's like Abbott was reducing the packaging of our products versus just providing coffee cups. I mean, they're both good things, but one is more relevant to our industry. In this case, it would be the packaging, not necessarily the coffee cups.
Jacqueline, sorry to interrupt, but we're at the 10-minute mark. You've got 5 minutes left.
Thank you. So, here's a, can I ask another quiz question? So what kind of industry is this? So here we have on one axis, we have things that are relevant or important to the business on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, we have things that are relevant to stakeholders. So it's about balancing the needs, right, between the stakeholders, like the employees, the investors, your customers, and the community, against the needs of the business. So you see here, there's like, let's see, health and safety, quality food, climate change. Wait a minute, cocoa. Wait a minute, littered gum, marketing to children, responsible pet ownership. These things are thought of as being really important to the stakeholders and the business. This is a candy company. This is what's material to a candy company, sustainability issues. So after you decide what to do that, you got to have goals. You got to change these things. You got to change the way you're doing business, right? One of the things that we're looking at is setting a carbon goal, because we know that if the Earth warms more than 1.5 degrees, according to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, really bad things are going to happen. So we got to make sure that we reduce our emissions by almost 50% by 2030. We only have 8.5 more years to do that. How do we do that? Well, you got to reduce the emissions of your fleet, the refrigerants, the heating fuel you're using in the building, the electricity you're using in your buildings, and then you got to look at your business travel and your logistics and your purchase goods and services. There's hidden carbon in all of these things, and you got to develop strategies to deal with those. And then you got to measure them and monitor them and set goals. Like here's one right here that we had, if you want to be carbon neutral by 2050, well, right now we're using fossil fuels. Well, what do we do? Well, let's electrify our fleets. You got to set goals and measure it and report it. And then everybody, all those investors and customers and everything, you got to make them happy because they're asking you for information. They're asking you to disclose what you're doing. So a big part of my job is responding to all of these different disclosure rankings and frameworks and stock indices of everybody asking us these questions about our footprint. And all this stuff gets looked at by investors. It goes onto the internet and they're using tools to evaluate you to see if they want to buy your stock or if they want to do business with you. So, phew, it's a lot of work and you're still not done. You got to keep working on it. You got to keep improving. You got to keep spinning plates all over the place. You got to work on communicating and training and maintaining data and leading projects. So the pros and cons of doing what I do. I would say it's always different. You get to use a lot of different skills. You have a sense of purpose. It aligns with your values. You get to learn a lot about the company, the people that you work with. Sustainability people are the best people there are. They're doing it because they want to do a great job. The cons are, it's an office job and you have responsibility without authority and you have to nag people a lot. And it's hard to make progress sometimes because it's change. So you have to watch out for job burnout because a lot of people are expecting you to do all the sustainability work. And then finally, it might be a good job for you if you're passionate about it. You can multitask well, if you're creative and you've got good leadership abilities and you have grit and determination. Thank you for having me tonight.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. That was amazing. I gotta say my favorite part though was definitely when you just went up to the CEO and I have an idea. And he's like, all right. That was, oh my gosh, amazing. So just a reminder to our audience to put all of your questions in the Q&A box. We will have a quick 3-minute break while the members of Sustainable Leaders in Action and Sustainable Contra Costa talk about their organizations and projects. And then we'll be back with a presentation by Ralph Jessee of the USDA's Agricultural Research Service. See you soon, everyone.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh no. All right. Zoom. Thank you, Jacqueline, so much for your presentation, and thank you for doing it in record time. That was awesome. Something I want to talk to you all about right now is Energy Upgrade California. So I work with Sustainable Contra Costa, and we are working on a grant with Energy Upgrade California to share energy tips with as many people as possible so that you can save money and energy during the summer. Some things are as simple as adjusting your thermostat or washing clothes with cold water. But if this is something that is interesting to you, please go ahead and look at energyupgradecalifornia.org or sustainablecocoa.org/energy, and you'll see some of our resources about energy and energy efficiency. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everyone. As previously said, I'm Alexi Lindeman, the chair of Sustainable Leaders in Action, and I hope Jacqueline's presentation gave you a little bit of insight on just one of the many careers in sustainability. If you would like to receive notifications about the future Client Careers Chat, please subscribe to the Client Careers Chat mailing list, and that will be sent out in the chat shortly. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about SLIA. So every month our volunteers create a newsletter and an action of the month on the Cleaner Contra Costa challenge that they complete, something like taking shorter showers or turning off the air because of all the heat right now. And then recently, we also created and ran Operation Green Mission Possible, which is a summer program teaching elementary schoolers about environmental projects through missions like Waste Watchers and Agents on the Move. If you're interested in joining or contacting Sustainable Leaders in Action, feel free to message me through the email displayed on the screen or in chat during our program. Have a wonderful break.
All right, everyone, I'm back again. Thank you to the moderators. Sorry. Sustainable Contra Costa's other big program that we work on is the Cleaner Contra Costa program, the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge. And this program has its own online platform, which you see right now. This is a great way to save money and energy and water and resources. Similar to Energy Upgrade California, there are a lot of things that you can do in your houses to reduce your carbon footprint and your household's carbon footprint, some of which are given to us through actions. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So one of the really cool things you can do on the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge platform is see these actions. There are a lot of different categories ranging from being energy efficient, being water wise, even hanging out at home, and you can see our youth friendly category. Once you do an action, or these actions are something that you already do at in your home, you mark the action as done. And all of this contributes to lessening your carbon footprint and being able to engage with your community as well while doing this. Can you click the next thing, please? Also, the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge has a bunch of prizes available. We have a whole page on our website dedicated to the challenge prizes, but some of them are gift cards to Rivertown Sweets, gift cards to the hardware stores nearby, Sideboard Kitchen, 511 Contra Costa Clipper cards, and a big range of other prizes. The prizes so far haven't really been claimed, so if this is something that you're interested in, we highly, highly recommend that you join the challenge, complete an action, and then send us an email about it so that we can give you a prize. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone who just talked during the break. I love being a part of Sustainable Leaders in Action, but we'll get to that later because right now we are going to hear from the amazing Ralph Jessee, an environmental protection specialist at the USDA Agricultural Research Service. I think everyone wants to hear from this. So Ralph, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen, right? that look okay? Can you see me and my,
Yep, we can see your screen.
okay, you can see me in my screen now. All right, so yeah, I'm an environmental protection specialist for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Peoria, Illinois. And we have about 250 employees at the National Center for Agricultural Utilization Research in Peoria, Illinois. I work in the Midwest area office, which is an administrator of 14 labs in a 9-state region. All right. So Max's father and I were very fortunate. Our dads worked at Illinois State University, and Max's father and I studied ecology in, we took a canoe trip down the Mackinac River in Illinois. We took a rafting trip down the Colorado River in Keystone, Colorado, and we went to Southern Florida and studied the Everglades and Key Largo, and also, you know, Max's grandfather was the administrator of the computer center at the Illinois State University, and so Max's uncle Dave and Tom and I, Max's dad and I, we all learned a lot about computers at the time, and so back then computers were quite different than they are now. You know, the phone you've got is probably a more powerful computer than what we had on our desks back at that time. But anyway, so when I was in high school and college, I was given a job at the Illinois State University chemistry department. And one of the first things I did was handling radiological hazardous waste. It was liquid scintillation counting waste, which was mostly toluene, but a little bit of a radioactive tracer in it. I was learning different types of chromatography, column chromatography, and also taking care of rats and feeding rats, and you know, general laboratory work, washing glassware and organizing chemicals. Some of that work might not be in the way that I would recommend we do it today. So we might not have been following all the EPA regulations at the time. But anyway, so I also in college trained to become a lifeguard. And I realized that the more training that I got, the more money I could get. So I got Red Cross certified as a water safety instructor, and learned first aids. And yeah, I was able to save a couple of kids from drowning in public pools. All right, so one summer while I was in college, I was a Marine Corps officer candidate, and didn't stay in that for more than one summer, but I got to ride in these semi-driven trailers, which are called cattle cars. So yeah, didn't return to the Marine Corps after that, went back to college. Then after I graduated from Illinois State University, Max's great aunt helped me get a job at a medical laboratory, testing body fluids and you know, getting the experience of reporting the results to doctors, talking with the doctors on the telephone, and yeah, working with Bio-Rad brand standards and controls. So I was operating and maintaining a lot of laboratory instrumentation. At the time, OSHA regulations in the middle of the 80s were really just starting to be recognized. And so I started to learn a little bit about OSHA regs. And I learned that you know, medical laboratory work is one of the hardest jobs with the lowest amount of pay. So joined the Navy Medical Service Corps, and they sent me off to Newport, Rhode Island for officer indoctrination school with a bunch of nurses and pharmacists and professionals. And then once I completed that training, I was sent to Camp Pendleton in Southern California. And yeah, so while I was there, I did evaluate a site at the Fallbrook Naval Weapons Station where there was a lot of napalm being stored there. And yeah, so it was dripping out of the bombs onto the ground. And they were asking me what my opinion of all that was. I think I would have recommended they put a pan underneath it. But anyway, okay, so yeah, I was learning a lot about OSHA regulations and EPA regulations and something called medical surveillance. So, you know, people who work with hazardous materials, their employers will provide them medical surveillance that annually they get a physical and they get their blood tested, you know, specimens that they give are tested and things like that. Then I was also the officer of the day at the Naval Hospital, Camp Pendleton. And what that is I was, along with the other lieutenants, the person who was in charge of the whole hospital at night when the command duty officer and the commanding officer of the hospital went home. And so, as you can imagine, a lot of different things happened overnight, and especially in the emergency room that I would have to keep track of and, you know, make decisions about things that the ER might need, or keep the command duty officer and the commanding officer informed the next morning. I got to ride around the base in one of these helicopters. I was doing a lot of worker noise evaluations. So I was also doing a little bit of mold investigations, and I was given a job to evaluate a mold problem at the commanding general's home at the base. And then I was also given an opportunity to do an assessment of a commuter railway maintenance facility that was planned to be built on the base. And so I did some what's called community noise evaluations, and I started to learn about something called the National Environmental Policy Act, where all major federal actions have to be evaluated for the environmental impact before decision makers decide to do them. All right, also was involved in a lot of disaster preparedness on the base, and I was, you know, for whatever reason, in the middle of the 90s, the guy that was able to figure out how to use basically what you would call an instant messaging system today. And, you know, so basically the base would do drills where they would say there's a fire in one part of the base. And basically all I would do is position ambulances wherever the base wanted an ambulance to be. That was an asset of the hospital. All right, then the Navy trained me to analyze asbestos, air sampling, and bulk samples of building materials for asbestos and microscopes. I was sent to Alameda Naval Air Station a couple of times to do that kind of training, and also the San Diego Naval Base to do some of that kind of training. So I was also on this ship, the USS Harper's Ferry, and learned about how the Navy disposed of garbage. And before the mid-90s, they just dumped it all overboard. And it floated all around and the ship would drive through it. But anyway, eventually later in the late 90s, they started separating it out, and some stuff could go overboard if you waited it to sink, and other things, they were just kind of melting down plastic and bringing it back to shore to recycle it. All right, also did some ventilation evaluations on the ship, and these ships can carry hovercraft, and these hovercraft are maintained at the Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base, and so I was involved in assessing the health of all the different kinds of hazardous materials that the people that worked on these hovercraft were exposed to, and making sure that you know, that they're not overexposed to any hazardous chemicals, like when they're repairing these big rubber skirts on these hovercraft. Got to ride on the hovercraft. Also did a noise assessment in these Amtraks. These Amtraks also go on to that landing ship that I showed you before, and rode in the inside of this Amtrak, and basically has no windows, but I was doing a noise assessment of how noisy it is inside of these. Then after my time at Camp Pendleton, California, they sent me to, they sent me to Rhode Island again, but then they also sent me to Norfolk, Virginia. And then they sent me on this airplane to the Azores, which is islands, volcanic islands, so kind of to the east of Spain, east of Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean. Then flew to Sicily, which is also a volcanic island near Italy. Then met the USS Theodore Roosevelt, the aircraft carrier. And being on the aircraft carrier, they trained me to be a firefighter, taught me how to use oxygen breathing apparatus. And I learned a lot about international environmental regulations. I'll tell you about a lot of different places that I visited, and learned all the different systems on the ship, like the drinking water system, the air conditioning system, all the different weapon systems, all the different airplanes, all of the different departments, how the reactor worked and everything. And then took a oral exam and achieved this surface warfare medical service pin that I could wear on my uniform. They made me the respiratory protection program manager of the ship, had a bunch of enlisted guys that did most of the maintenance of the respirators because they were shared among the other people on the ship, and was involved in a couple of military operations, the Persian Gulf War, and also what I call Bosnia-Herzegovina. All right, then, so yeah, down in the reactor spaces, and then around the ship, there are these tanks on the wall that have a compressor connected to them that get filled up with air, and then they have a hose that you can connect to it, and a mask you can put on and breathe the air that's in these tanks if, you know, there's a reason why the air becomes unbreathable. But I was given the job to test all these tanks for the air to see if it was breathable. And for the most part, it was okay, but a lot of it was a little bit too much moisture in it. The compressors would just compress a lot of moisture in the air into the tank. So that became a breathing hazard. So we worked on trying to make those better. Also, I was on the Theodore Roosevelt when it collided with the USS Leyte Gulf. They were doing a blackened ship exercise where they turn off all the lights. Then they also were doing a back up the ship exercise, and they kind of backed up, and the ships collided. So the smaller ship collided into the back of the aircraft carrier. All right,
Just
so
a quick
also was
update.
involved.
We're at the 12-minute mark, so we've got 3 minutes left.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll try to rocket through this. Bunch of hazmat spills that I had to work on cleaning up. I was the division officer of the safety division and supervisor of a bunch of people. Went to Italy, Greece, learned about foreign nation money, Venice, the city that's got the canals. Went to Israel, saw the West Wall, Tomb of David, and church where Jesus was buried, and the church where Jesus was born. Went to the Caribbean, Florida, Canada, learned, I got to use my Spanish in Spain that I learned in school. Went to Cannes, France, launched off the aircraft carrier in this plane that you can see also has no windows in it, and it was very cold. Went to Florence, Italy, Arab Emirates, back to Greece again. Greece is very nice. Turkey, Palma de Mallorca is an island off of the coast of Spain. So then they sent me to Chicago, and I was part of the hazmat cleanup team for the base, asbestos lab quality assurance manager, and once again involved in a lot of disaster preparedness. At that point, I was the advisor to 30 Department of Defense facilities, including the Medical Research Institute Toxicology Detachment at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And I was an administrator of this Gulf War Syndrome program where I collected info from a lot of vets, and they went through the Chicago hospital to get a medical exam. Learned a lot
Ralph,
about
sorry to
different.
interrupt again, but you can go a little over the 15-minute mark. We've saved some,
All right.
some extra time.
Thank you. I'll try to go as fast as I can. So I had to learn a lot about these ISO standards. So for asbestos air and for bulk analysis, there are international standard organization standards for that. Learned about environmental site assessments, which you want to do if you're doing a major realty transaction. I was doing a lot of microscope maintenance. Once again, was doing flame atomic absorption spectrophotometry that was for testing paint samples for lead. A lot of different air sampling techniques and mold assessments. This is me doing a mold assessment in a condo in Chicago. I was at that point teaching how to do the asbestos air analysis course, learning a lot more about OSHA and EPA regs. I was also the chemical hygiene officer for the lab. Now I'm the environmental protection specialist, and I do a lot of these National Environmental Policy Act reviews and in their National Environmental Policy Act environmental assessments. I do environmental management system audits of 14 labs in the Midwest area, and they are supposed to have these environmental management systems that are approximating the ISO 14001 standard. And working with a lot of groundwater cleanup in a few sites in Wisconsin, Peoria, Ames, Iowa, and that's CERCLA is the Comprehensive Environmental Recovery, Compensation, and Liability Act. And then I'm basically the medical surveillance expert for my sub-agency, the Agricultural Research Service. COOPs and business continuity plans are another type of disaster preparedness, continuity of operations plans, and doing a lot of training, doing these exact kind of Zoom trainings during the pandemic. Oops, sorry. So also on the emergency response team for the lab in Peoria, we are prepared to clean up hazmat spills and wearing, you know, these complete suits and self-contained breathing apparatus. Also, you know, got to be an expert in all the OSHA EPA regs. Also have to know about animal welfare, you know, which is taking care of the animals that we do experiments on. We have a lot of different kinds of animals. We're not really doing experiments on them, but we have them in our mostly Ames, Iowa facility. All right, doing something called biosecurity, which is keeping unwanted organisms out of your lab. And actually we've had some problems with that where the Army sent us some anthrax, but also a little bit of just security when there's a problem. Sometimes they report it to me, I report it to headquarters that something got stolen or something like that. Also, because of all this environmental and industrial hygiene work, I got, of course, dragged into a lot of safety throughout my entire career. And as you guys probably want to know about, we have a lot in the U.S. Department of Agriculture for sustainability. And so the department, their mission is to feed the world sustainably. But in the sub-agency, we have a facility engineer that basically his job is to help us reduce energy and meet the executive orders that President Biden has set and goals for reducing use of utilities and, you know, trying to when we trade in vehicles, get more electric vehicles. We have a few hybrid vehicles at the lab, but I think what we're supposed to try to do next is when we trade in vehicles, get a full electric vehicle. All right, so this is a photo of the lab in Peoria, and its mission is to take agricultural products and turn them into industrial products. It was originally built to develop the process to mass produce penicillin in about the 1930s or 1940s. And you can see there's a little greenhouse that sort of sticks out the south end of the building. We're going to build another greenhouse over here on the south end of the building. And then, yeah, my area has the National Animal Disease Center in Ames, Iowa. And we have buffalo there, bison, elk, white-tailed deer, cattle. We have biosafety level 3 containment facilities for large animals, and biosafety level 3 laboratories for studying viruses. And so, yeah, that concludes most of my talk. But, you know, if you want to find out about all the different locations in my sub-agency, there's a URL there for a map that shows that. And if you'd like to work for the federal government or an agricultural research service, there's a website for that. Turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you, Ralph. That was amazing. I'm personally astounded by your journey, especially the part where you saved 2 kids from drowning and also all of your time with the US Navy. That's amazing. So thank you so much again for presenting and sharing your journey with us. I'm going to let Jackie take it over again so she can talk about the upcoming library events.
Jacqueline from the library.
I look all stripey. There, less stripes, more me. Alrighty, there's 3 things that I want to tell you guys that are coming up. I focused on the teen events because we have mostly teen and college students registered for this event, but you can find out all our events at our website, ccclib.org. The 3 events that I want to talk about tonight are coming up in just a few days. The free comic book days. That's going to be held at every branch, but there's a lot of really great programs on Zoom that you can sign up for. We're going to have some amazing speakers, including artists and voice actors. And I think you'll really enjoy some of the swag that's coming to the libraries. So if you want to stop by like Rachel did and pick up your swag bag and some free comics, we'd really love to see you. The second thing that I want you to keep your eyes tuned for is our Contra Costa Reads. Contra Costa Reads is going to happen in September, and we are going to review Tracy, the videos in the front of me. It's We Are Not Free, Tracy Chi, which is actually a young adult novel. I think everybody enjoys reading a book and then they can talk about it with other people, share their experiences, and it's going to be really nice. And save the date for Teentober. October is going to be Teentober month, and we're going to celebrate teens. We're going to get their input as to what they'd like to see in the library and how we can help teens be more successful in their lives. We'd just love to see you, and check it out, ccclib.org.
Thank you, Jackie. So now we are on our Q&A portion of the event tonight. So if you guys have any questions that you haven't said thus far, please put them in the Q&A box and indicate whom it's for. So I'm just going to get started with the first one. The first one is for Jacqueline, and it's loved hearing about Alaska Airlines and your current company. What do you feel was your biggest contribution to sustainability?
Well, I think, you know, it's there's really 2 things that I'm really proud of. Number one is that I started at Alaska. We had 0 sustainability program, and actually convincing management. I mean, it took me years of beating my head against the wall. It's like an uphill battle, you know, because change is hard for people to do. But that it was actually a success, that we went from having nothing to actually getting stuff done. And the in-flight recycling program was one of the programs I was happiest about, because it was a grassroots effort and we didn't have really any resources. It was largely volunteer, but we made it happen and we were recognized for it. So I think those are I'm sorry, I don't have one. It was two things. It was, you know, the idea of starting with nothing and accomplishing something. It was very fulfilling.
All right, we've got another question for Jacqueline. Do you feel that you've received enough funding or support from Bio-Rad to do the job the way you want to do it?
Well, I've only been there 6 months so far, so we shall see, but I gotta let you know, they could give me as much funding as they could possibly want to. They could probably throw millions of dollars at me and it probably still wouldn't be enough. The more I have, the more I can get done, right? I want to change the world. You know, I'm on a mission to improve the environment. That's my passion in life. So, you know, I want more resources to get it done.
Thank you, Jacqueline. The next question is for Ralph, and it's, what's the worst hazardous waste cleanup you were involved in, and what's something that the general public doesn't realize about cleanup of hazardous waste?
Yeah, so on the Theodore Roosevelt, well, yeah, I think a lot of the ships back at that time had some kind of neurotoxic hydraulic fluid on them called Fryquel. And Fryquel is fire-resistant hydraulic fluid. And it's a neurotoxin. And one day it started spraying out in the hangar bay 2 out of this ventilation opening. And so we kind of went into action and closed the big doors between hangar bay 1 and hangar bay 2 and hangar bay 2 and hangar bay 3, and then got to try to post guards around there and keep people from going in. But you know, people went in, so there was half a dozen or more people that basically had to go to medical, and I think they had their blood drawn and tested for cholinesterase, because this neurotoxin is a cholinesterase inhibitor. And so, yeah, we had neurotoxic hydraulic fluid spill on the Theodore Roosevelt. Did that answer the question? Was there a second part of that question I missed answering?
I think you answered it all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Now we have a question from Kyle, Sustainable Leaders in Action. He can't answer in the Q&A for some reason, so he's asking it in the chat. Just a reminder to the rest of the audience, put it in the Q&A. If you can't, put it in the chat. We want to hear all of your questions, so just get it in there. This is for Jacqueline. What are some of the ways you convinced your coworkers and other workers to work with you for sustainability?
That's a great question. You know what? Everybody has, you know, different levers and buttons and different things that motivate them. And so I think you really have to tailor how you speak to people to, you know, their perspective. For example, if I'm trying to convince somebody about to take on a sustainable project, if they are in the finance division at my company, I am going to talk about the cost benefit of it, right? Because that's what they're keyed in on. That's their whole work life is revolving around numbers and cutting costs, making profits and things like that. If I'm going to convince somebody in the marketing department, I've got to talk to them how it improves our brand or how it's relevant, you know, and improves sales or something like that. So I try to engage people with, you know, on the level that they're interested in it. And the other thing I have to say too is that you always want to approach it from a position of opportunity and excitement and engagement. Like you never want to be the person who walks in the room going, we're killing all the bears, the polar bear, you know, the polar ice cap is melting, we're doomed, you know. Nobody wants to hop on the sustainability party boat with you if you're all doom and gloom and misery and negative and things like that. So you got to get people excited about the opportunity and the ability to, you know, fulfill their passion or fix a problem or drive efficiencies or save money or something like that. you've got to make it a cool place to be. You know, you want people to enjoy and engage on sustainability and not just feel guilty about it.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Next question is for Ralph, and it is what is the concern / reason why the EPA is holding the large animals?
Okay, so the U.S. Department of Agriculture has the National Animal Disease Center in Ames, Iowa, and what they do there is they study all of the domestic animal diseases of agricultural animals in the U.S. So there's another laboratory that would study all of the diseases that are outside of the United States. But the one in Ames, Iowa is studying all of the diseases in the US of animals, and some of those include brucella, prions, which aren't really a microorganism. They're sort of like a protein that causes a disease. You know, they study other viruses. The purpose of that is to improve the health of the, you know, the cattle in Montana are kind of intermingling with bison and transmitting diseases between the herds of cattle and the herds of bison. So they're studying that. And, so, you know, when these large animals are ill, then they have to be kept in a containment facility. And basically biosafety is, you know, protecting the workers from the microbes that you're working with. And it's all about containment. So you have a small container that you keep your sample in. You have a biosafety cabinet that you keep that sample inside of that container inside of. You have a lab that's a container that you keep your biosafety cabinet in that's got your container of your sample inside of it. So that's kind of what they're doing. They're doing a lot of disease studies on large animals in Ames, Iowa.
Thank you, Ralph. That was a great question, great answer. So moving on, we've got a question for the both of you from Alexi. Do you see a lot of greenwashing in your career? And if so, how do you or others counteract this greenwashing?
Well, yes, there's lots of greenwashing out there. I have a funny story. I was at work one day at the airline, and I got a call from the front desk, said, you've got a package downstairs. And I was really bored because all my coworkers were out of the office. So I'll go check out my package. I get this package, it's a plastic FedEx bag. And I'm like, I didn't order anything from FedEx. So I opened it up, and inside there was a little tree wrapped in plastic with a piece of paper that said, here at XYZ Printing Company, you know, we want to help you go green, and we're going to share with you the symbol by giving you this tree to plant, I guess, in a plastic bag delivered by a truck, burning emissions to send me something I didn't need, right? And so I'm like, oh, this is really the bad way to reach me about environmental stuff, you know, because for that, is it an invasive species? Do I plant it in the sun or the shade? I'm just kidding, this tree's going to die under my watch. Plus it's in a plastic bag, and plus, so I sent the guy a snarky email going, yeah, why don't you just throw a brick with this message on it at somebody in the safety department, get your message across that way. They wanted to sell me printers by giving me a tree in a plastic bag. And so, you know, there's kind of like a really, how do I put this? Not a good way to market to somebody who cares about the environment is sending them a bunch of plastic and sending that kind of message to them. And so nevertheless, the guy continued to pursue me and said, well, you know what, we can really help Alaska Airlines reduce its carbon footprint if you use our photocopiers. Like, okay, you know, we burn 1 million gallons of jet fuel every day. I fail to see how a printer is going to help us reduce our carbon footprint. There's a lot of this stuff going on. People are marketing and they're not really thinking about their messaging, and they don't really understand the science, and they don't really understand your priorities. And, you know, other than calling people out on it, there's not a whole lot I can do in my position about greenwashing. I try and make sure my company certainly doesn't engage in anything like that, but I can't do much about other companies other than, you know, give them a hard time kind of thing.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Ralph?
Just before we move on, could you possibly define greenwashing for those that may not know the definition?
Oh, so greenwashing, I think, is when you make a claim that somehow or another a certain product, it's a type of marketing where you're making a claim that somehow or another your product is better for the environment when it's really not. You know, it's unsubstantiated environmental claims about a product usually. They take things out of perspective. They use like kind of BS information. Yeah, it's not an ethical or honorable way to promote a product, to insinuate that something is green or better when it's really not. Ralph, do you have anything to add? I'm sure you can do a better job than me.
I don't know about better, but so yeah, I love the U.S. Department of Agriculture. However, one of the things they promote a lot is products that come from agriculture, okay? And I can understand why they want to do that. And they're called bio-based products. But just because it's a bio-based product doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best product for the environment or the least health hazardous product. So keep in mind that just because it's bio-based and it's grown, you know, in an agricultural field, you know, look at the, you know, other options that you got. They might be less health hazardous and might be more friendly to the environment.
Thank you, Ralph. The next question is for Jacqueline, and it says, your bio mentioned that eating more plants was one of the best ways to become more sustainable. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, there's all kinds of information out there for you in the internet and lots of things to look at there. But, you know, especially the higher up on the food chain you eat, especially if you're eating red meat like beef or pork or something like that, there's a lot more resources that grow into raising a pound of beef or pork than there is for a pound of beans. And so the difference in water, the footprint of a pound of steak is like 300,000 times bigger than the footprint of a pound of beans. Because you think about it, you got to raise plant protein, put it into an animal. There's a lot of waste in that system. And you think about all of the emissions that go into the processing and the movement and the feeding. You think about the loss of biodiversity and the grazing. You think about the water use. You think about the methane that the cattle or the pigs are emitting and the handling of the manure waste. It's just not worth it. And you look at, you know, in Brazil where there's like losing a lot of the forest down there because of cattle grazing policies and procedures. We can't afford to eat as much meat as we do. And like your mom said, you know, vegetables are better for you. So anyway, so there's a lot of information that a lot of research out there about the environmental effects of the animal industry. And so that's something to be conscious about. It's better all around for your health and the environment if you are eating plant protein instead of animal protein. I think I read it's like agriculture is 14% of all the human-made carbon emissions, and about half of that is from meat, and that's on par with all of transportation. So, you know, first thing you can do is use more fuel efficient or less emissions transportation, and the next best thing is to cut as much meat as you can out of your diet.
Well, I gotta say, I did not know that. That's such a small thing. It makes a really big impact. I mean, now that I say that out loud, it kind of makes sense. All right. So this one is for Ralph, and it says, slightly silly question, how is the EPA affected by the different administrations?
Yeah, so you might hear on the news about president signs executive orders. And so every time a new president comes into office, they write executive orders. And, you know, what happened was back in the late 1990s, President Clinton started to get the federal agencies involved in what we call environmental management systems. What I mentioned earlier about the ISO 14001 standard. And then, you know, President Bush actually promoted that when he got into office and wrote executive orders that required the agencies to have these environmental management systems. Then, you know, President Obama did the same thing. He promoted the environmental management systems in the ISO 14001 format. However, when President Donald Trump got into office, he did not. What he did was he promoted the actual acts which were passed by Congress. So there were a lot of acts of energy conservation acts in the federal government and enough other kinds of federal acts that we kind of didn't really change much. And at the time, the department had instructions that said we were supposed to have these environmental management systems, so that didn't change much. But there were some instructions in my department that were written based on the change in the executive orders at that time. And then, of course, President Biden got into office at the beginning of this year. And really what changed was, like I mentioned, there's the talk about trying to trade in our gas vehicles for electric vehicles. But, you know, the whole time I've continued to do these audits of the environmental management systems at the 14 labs in our area. And they have continued to actually have goals for utilities conservation, water conservation, throughout the entire time, and always trying to improve that. And, you know, a lot of these improvements save money big time for the federal government. If you look at that photo of that lab in Peoria, you know, it's a huge facility. We spend millions on utilities. And so we've, you know, done a lot to try to conserve energy, and it is a lot of money savings too.
Thank you, Ralph. The next question is for Jacqueline again, and it is, what impact has the airline recycling program made? How much by weight does it save every year, and have other airlines adopted similar measures? And also, does it involve composting too, or only recycling?
Jacqueline, you're on mute right now.
Well, it's been 3 years since I left Alaska Airlines, so I can only speak to what it was when I left 3 years ago, because I haven't been keeping tabs on their current program, and I think it's changed because of the coronavirus. But we had a goal to reduce the waste to landfill by 70% per passenger. And when I left, we were about 50. We had reduced it by over 50% per passenger. So we were actually measuring it in terms of how many pounds per passenger. And I think we got it from like 4/10 of a pound down to 2/10 of a pound per passenger, the waste to landfill. And when you think about it, like just in Seattle alone, where one of our hubs is, that is 11 tons of garbage a day, 11 tons of garbage per day, just one airport flight kitchen. So if you can imagine, you know, extrapolated over the rest of the world into much bigger airports rather than the SeaTac airport, that is a lot of garbage. So, and also we're piloting a composting program. Mainly it was the coffee. So, and I don't remember what the total numbers were on all these things because it's been a few years, but we were composting quite a bit of coffee because we're brewing a lot of coffee on those morning flights.
That is amazing that you got it down that much. I can't believe that. Oh my gosh. You guys like cut it in half. That was incredible. So this next question is for Ralph. What has stood out to you the most in your experience with foreign environmental standards and regulations?
Yeah, so basically, it's different everywhere. The ship would go into one port and, sometimes you'd be able to dump your sewage deep under the ship, and sometimes it would have to go onto a barge. Sometimes you'd get to a port, the Arab Emirates, and they were happy to take all our hazardous waste. They wanted it or something. I don't know, but things like that. So basically, it's different everywhere. So you got to just find out what the rules are there. And, it's just a list of rules. So sometimes the rules overlap, and you've got to decide to take, the most stringent one and use that rule. So it's finding out what you need to know beforehand, and when you get there, doing what they allow you to do.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Ralph. All right, we're going to wrap this up. We've got one final question, and this is for the both of you. What is the biggest thing that you believe needs to change for society to live more sustainably?
Let's see, I think I'll go first since you went last, Ralph. The biggest thing. Well, obviously, I think people need to understand it more and understand how every single little action they take adds up. I mean, just even going and getting a cup of coffee every day adds up over the course of the year. It adds up in terms of emissions, it adds up in terms of waste. So, I think we've got to raise our consciousness and be more conscientious about these things, realize the impacts of our actions on the rest of the planet and on the animals and everybody else in the world, because it seems like just one little thing, but everybody, millions of people doing the same thing every single day, it adds up really quickly. So with that in mind, though, you think about the Paris Climate Agreement, think about what the UN and every single country in the world is working together to stop climate change. And the next threshold year is 8.5 years from now. And in order to meet that goal, we have to reduce our emissions. That means pretty much every single one of us in some way, shape, or another by about 40 to 50% over the next 8 years. So how are we going to do that? It's time to get going. It's time to start looking at all the different ways you're contributing to climate change and carbon emissions and greenhouse gases, and what can you do in your life to reduce that, to take ownership of what you're doing and live a more sustainable lifestyle.
Well, I'm going to cheat here because I think two things. One would be, they got to stop using coal for energy in Asia. And the other one is moving to electric vehicles. As we stop using gasoline and diesel, use electric cars and trucks. And, stop using coal, we'll be better off.
Ralph, did you hear that the Kentucky Coal Mining Museum actually is solar powered? You can look it up because coal has gotten so expensive, nobody can afford to use it anymore. And so even the Coal Mining Museum is solar powered these days. Solar power has come down so sharply over the years that it's a lot cheaper than coal.
I've got to say, both great answers, and I really did not know that. That's the Coal Museum uses solar power. That's just so hypocritical. Wow. All right, that's it for our Q&A. I'll hand it over to Mia to give you some closing comments and help wrap up the event. So Mia, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel. So again, this event was brought to you by Sustainable Leaders in Action in collaboration with the Contra Costa County Library. So SLIA is again composed of members in high school and college, and we're based in the Contra Costa County. We focus on creating a healthier, cleaner, and safer community by not only working on projects like this, but also working on other projects, including the Action of the Month, the newsletter, and the Green Team. So for a little bit more detail about these projects, the Action of the Month is based off of the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge. So each SLIA member commits to completing one action per month, and these actions can range from reusable water bottles to switching up your transportation. And our bi-monthly newsletter is composed of student-written sustainability articles for all ages. And finally, our Green Team is composed of SLIA member-led teams for younger students to learn green practices. So if any of these sound appealing to you and you want to learn a little bit more about them, the links for all of them will be put into the chat below. I personally joined SLIA in January through actually one of these climate career chats, and I have nothing but good things to say about it. It's been an amazing experience working with people who are interested in the same things as you, and you not only meet intelligent and smart people like my co-moderator and the interns and the panelists, of course, but you get to work on fun and amazing projects like this. So I'm going to hand it off to Rachel to let her talk about her experience.
Yeah. I also joined after seeing a climate careers chat, and it's just been, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's been great from the very beginning. Everyone here is very passionate about sustainable living and teaching others about sustainability. I've gotten so many opportunities to really use my talents and what I'm good at in this field of sustainability, and I love it so much. You get to work with people like Mia, like Alexi, like Max, and like Kyle. These are amazing people. And we get to meet panelists like Ralph and Jacqueline. Like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and I am so glad I am part of this club. So really, nothing bad to say about it. All great things. And if you want to join up for this experience of a lifetime, you can contact our chair, Alexi Lindeman. Her email will be in the chat, and you just email her to join the club. You already know the chair of the club. You're already in with the top dogs. Like, you got it all right there. So please join Sustainable Leaders in Action. We're going to save the world, guys. So I will let Mia finish us off.
Thank you, Rachel. So if you like what you heard and saw throughout this presentation, make sure to check us out on our social media, which includes the SLIA Instagram, SCOGO Instagram, and website, and all of those will be put into the chat. So with that, I'm going to let Rachel close off this event.
Thank you very much, Mia. All right, thank you to our audience for coming. You guys are the reason we do this. Thank you to our panelists for coming. You guys are also the reason we do this. Your stories are amazing, and I can't believe I've learned so much in like this past hour and a half. It's incredible. Thank you to the Contra Costa County Libraries and Sustainable Contra Costa. You guys, we cannot have done this without the libraries and their support. If anyone has any more questions about Sustainable Leaders in Action or Sustainable Contra Costa, or for any of the panelists, feel free to stick around. We are happy to answer your questions, and have a great evening.